Hi guys, hello and welcome to Jazz Across the Pond. Jazz Interviews Reimagined, a brand new and a very exciting bringing together of two great nations. Is jazz talking like you've never seen or heard it before? Now I think it's about time we welcome the man from the other side of the pond. My partner in crime, he's there waiting. Let's join him. So there he is, looking debonair as ever.
Well,
My partner in crime.
How are you doing, Roger?
Hey, I'm pretty good. Thank you very much. Pretty good. Yeah. Survived last night's football result and we're still here.
Yeah, I'm still on a bit of a downer after that, but we won't talk about it.
Nope. It was penalties once again. But anyway, we're not going to have any penalties tonight. We're going to go straight on with the show.
I don't know about that, but we'll try not to.
Before we start the show, we've got to say for our regular followers who follow us every single week and they've got the calendar and they're ticking it off and they're going to be going, wow, this week Acoustic Alchemy with Greg and Miles, woohoo! No, due to unforeseen circumstances beyond our control, and we have total respect for them. Both of them contacted us and their manager, James, as well, and went, guys, it's a conflict. Is there any chance at all? And without a moment's hesitation, we both went, fine. We opened up a diary. The only thing is the diary, good for us, but the diary is full up to the end of September. So we've put to them a date, 3 dates in October this year. Right. Don't panic, this year. And we're just waiting for them to get the diaries together because it's not just one artist. We're looking at both artists. And right. But they have reassured us, listen, they've watched our shows, but they went, we want to be a part of this. And so if you are tuning in and you're going, Acoustic Alchemy, no, not tonight, but however.
So are we taking the night off? Okay, all right. We're not? No? Somebody's feeling like, okay.
No. Don't go anywhere. Anyway, let's start by saying a very warm welcome to the Jazz Across the Pond. Jazz Interviews Reimagined from me, Roger Lee, aka the Jazz Cat.
And I'm Kevin Goolsby, and they call me Mr. G.
Mr. G. The Wiener till my Schnitzel.
Wow.
Whoa.
Now, what's the rating on this show, Roger? So I'm the wiener to your schnitzel.
Yeah, that's right. And that should be to our guest.
Wait. Well, now my old friend, this is all I'm going to say. You should be so lucky that I would be the wiener to your schnitzel.
Ooh.
Oh my gosh. But anyway, I'd like to think we're more like soup and sandwich or maybe even bangers and mash. But if it has to be, I know I'm catching on. If it has to be, I'm your wiener to your schnitzel. So be it, because we've been called worst.
Yes, we have.
Did it? Worst?
Well, I don't know.
W-U-R-S-T?
Yeah.
I can't get anything past the Jazz Cat, apparently.
Okay, so taking it back. First of all, listen, how about this? I've had, only literally an hour ago, I had a message come through from a lovely guy called Simon. He's just called himself Simon. All right. And he commutes in England. He does a long commute to work and back and all the rest of it. And he contacted me. He said, can I tell you something? He said, I've managed to get your shows, the Jazz Across the Pond, and he's managed to get it through his car system. And he listens to the interviews while he's commuting, while he's driving. And he said, it's the most wonderful. He's calling it his antidote to a hard day's work. He sits and he listens to the two of us. And so, hey, I tell you what, it's a pat on the back for us. How about that?
Well, then he'll definitely get a kick out of being the wiener to your schnitzel, I guess. So.
Okay, we spoke, you mentioned bangers and mash. Of course, that brings us very nicely onto last week when we had the Yorkshire to my pudding, all right? And we invited up the Yorkshire lady herself, Beverly Venn. What can we say about last week's interview?
Well, I mean, she is such a talented, she's a UK vocalist, very talented. Actually began her professional career at age 19 as a student of classical music. But as you and I know, the allure of jazz with its rhythms and melodies proved to be too perfect a compliment to her. And I think she's got a rather sultry alto voice, and the rest is history. And of course, you know, Beverly enlisted the production services of another one of our guests here on Jazz Across the Pond, Jazz Interviews Reimagined, the outstanding composing keyboardist, arranger, and producer, Mr. Jason Miles.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, Beverly Byrne, the album it's called Dream Dancer, and it's a stunning album. Yes, produced by the wonderful Jason Miles, and that. I mean, to have him at the helm on the sound desk is unbelievable. And he actually, not only that, but he played the Hammond B3, and he played the Fender Rhodes and the string synth. And he's got 2 albums. He's done both of them for her and that. And
Yep.
want to learn more about it? Brilliant album and brilliant. And what I also just point out how privileged we are is the fact that Beverly allowed us here on Jazz Across the Pond to have the first ever play in the world of this album. Nobody
because we got advanced copies.
certainly did. That is the pulling power of this show, my friend.
I guess.
Anyway, so yeah, great interview last week. Absolutely fabulous. Thoroughly enjoyed it. Tremendous. Now, tonight, may have given something away with our little German delicacy there, because tonight we're going to be welcoming a gentleman who was born in Germany and then moved to Los Angeles and is revered as one of the best guitarists and record producers in California now. He's actually, I'm looking at the screen, he's in the waiting room.
Yay, all right.
Oh, no, he's in the green room. So we're going to be playing a track from his wonderful album, his brand new album. It's called Caught in the Groove. And we're going to play that. It's the title track from the album of the same name. And it has the most wonderful way of just starting up nice and slowly. And you go, oh, this is a bit nice. Then suddenly, boom, it hits in. And then it wouldn't be amiss from a TV detective program or a massive film. It just goes along at those wonderful pace and that. And I can't wait to talk to the man himself. But first of all, let's have a taste of it. You're listening to Jazz Across the Pond, Mr. G, myself, the Jazz Cat, and our main guest, our main man is in the green room. Sit back, enjoy Caught in the Groove, because you are going to be caught in the groove. Back in a moment.
Hi, this is German-American guitarist and record producer Nils from Los Angeles, and you're watching me on Jazz Across the Pond with the Jazz Cat and Mr. G. I hope you enjoy the show and check out some of my music.
Whoa, that track never ceases to amaze me. It is the most amazing track. Caught up in the groove. Kevin and myself have been toe tapping like mad. And we've got the man himself all the way from California. I'm actually going to start by saying, Guten Abend und willkommen the show.
Danke. Thanks
was
for
that?
having me, guys.
A lot of people don't realize I'm actually a bilingual illiterate. I can't read and write in two languages.
Got you beat there. I can do 3.
A very, very good evening and welcome along. What can we say about this week's very, very special guest? Nils is one of the most successful forces in the contemporary jazz genre, with 4 number 1 hits on the Billboard Smooth Jazz chart, including the Song of the Decade 2001 to 2010 with Pacific Coast Highways. Brilliant album. And
It's actually 5, by the way.
Okay. And Jumpstart, he stands out amongst his peers. His CD, The Jazz Gems, the best of yourself, could easily be titled the best contemporary jazz album because it is the most wonderful mixture of just fabulous music. Ladies and gentlemen, please join us as we welcome all the way from California, sunny California. Ladies and gentlemen, it's Nils.
Hey, thanks, guys.
Hey, the crowd goes wild.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for taking time out your day to chat to us today, sir.
Please, my pleasure, my pleasure. It's easier than traveling to the UK these days. I just recently had to travel through, and it was a nightmare with the forms to fill out and all that stuff. But I miss my UK fans. I used to come there, play in Manchester, play in London a few times. And I hope that we'll be able to do that again in the not too distant future.
Absolutely, and you'll see me at the front row, I promise you that. That will be it. Welcome me. So, born in Germany, if our researchers, and they're usually pretty good, have done their work correctly this week, your first influences were rock bands, bands including Deep Purple, Led Zeppelin, and Pink Floyd. As a rebellious teenager, they provided the soundtrack to your life. As you grew older, you were introduced to funk music. Now we're talking in R&B music, and your love of Earth, Wind & Fire, Commodores, and Funkadelic. Then you got the taste of jazz. You heard Steps Ahead in Munich. Michael Brecker laid down one of the most amazing solos you'd ever heard. Ultimately, music was the reason that you moved to the United States to start your wonderful career. Nils, please tell our followers more about your childhood. Did you come from a musical childhood and a musical family and your early days in Germany? And what was your first musical instrument you played, sir?
Well, you kind of got it right with that summation. My first instrument was guitar. And I was, influenced by, my first guitar hero, which was Ritchie Blackmore. My very first concert live was Rainbow, Ritchie Blackmore's Rainbow. Deep Purple had just broken up. And the opening band was an unknown band from Australia called AC/DC.
Oh, wow.
At that time. And, I got, Led Zeppelin was one of my favorite bands. But it changed when I got, we were in what we call the progressive rock band. And it broke up, and the drummer asked me if I wanted to join a funk band. And I said, what is funk? And he brought me over to the Space Players house, who had a record collection equivalent to the wall that I see behind you, from one wall to the other, one record. And the first thing he put on for me was a Getaway by Earth, Wind & Fire. I remember I just totally lost my mind. It was music that I loved every second, every beat of, and I never knew existed. And I was so, for months to come, I was basically, we were still dealing with tape decks and cassettes, and I came over, made copies, and I practiced all these rhythm guitar licks of Al McKay and Paul Jackson Jr. and everybody. And I got so into that funk rhythm playing and the syncopation and and the beats, I just totally ate it up. And you know, and then as you said, like, yeah, I had that Steps Ahead concert at the Philharmonic. It's a little club in Munich, the Philharmonie. It was kind of mind bending, and you know, my development is that I was able to kind of incorporate all three influences into my style.
Mm.
You know, then when just before I left for the US, I got into Yellow Jackets, and you know, and heard Robin Ford on the first Yellow Jacket album. And that instantly became my favorite guitar player, because he had that bluesy, fluid playing with this incredible phrasing ability of his. And yeah, so I came in, you know, that's kind of like was my curve of playing.
Makes perfect sense. I'm like you, Niles. I've been a big fan of the Yellow Jackets from the beginning, but of course, you know, it's hard not to be a fan of the Yellow Jackets if you love jazz, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
But now we understand that in the mid 1980s, you did make the decision to move to the United States from Germany to pursue an interest in composition, arrangement, and film composition.
Right.
If you would share with our audience how, and you alluded to it a little bit, but how did the music scenes differ between Germany and the US back in the 80s? And what was it about LA in particular that drew you to the West Coast?
Yeah. Well, see, that thing, in retrospect, it was my parents moving to Puerto Rico. It gave me, my dad got a job there running a branch of a German company in Puerto Rico. And then being that far away gave me the guts to quit university. I was enrolled in studying electronics at the Technical University of Munich, and I hated it. But, you know, I didn't see any other outlet in Germany to really do professional music other than playing cover bands, you know, at corporate parties and that kind of stuff. And I never was into, you know, I was always into writing my own music, being original. I quit university, drove a cab at night, went to music school during the day. My parents, you know, cut my allowance and you know, visited them. They say, you know, you got to do something more with your life than this. And I said, well, there's great schools in Los Angeles. And so they agreed and sent me to LA to study first at the Guitar Institute, GIT. And then while I was there, I learned about this other school where I could study composition arrangement, and I went there and studied that. And during that time, I met somebody who had a recording studio and started working as an engineer. So learned my engineering skills actually in, you know, by hands-on working in a studio, you know, and worked my way up from second engineer to first engineer till I got the keys to the studio and could use the downtime. And that's when I started recording my first album.
Wow. Incredible. Well, one of the, I think we're right in saying that one of those life-changing experiences of your life would be meeting Mr. George Benson. He wanted to meet you in person. Before, though, he agreed to recording a duet on your Blue Planet CD. You went to his hotel room. He pulled out a $50,000 jazz guitar, put it in your hands, and said, play it. So after freezing momentarily, and you went for a millisecond, you're holding George Benson's guitar, you started jamming with an amazing man himself. Please tell our followers more about this amazing experience and how things changed. You know, it's just incredible story, please.
That was, I mean, you know, there was, I mean, just having the man look, I mean, we were sitting right in front of me, you know, just looking at me, and I just, you know, well, fuck it, let's just play this guitar and enjoy playing this wonderful instrument. And the most amazing thing to me really was then that he kind of stopped me and said, hey, what did you do over there? Show me that.
Oh, wow.
And I got to show George Benson a new lick, you know. And then we just traded things back and forth. And he took the guitar and he could all figure that, oh, that's cool, you know, and that like totally made my day. He kind of taught me that, you know, how good we always say George forgot more than we probably ever learned.
Right.
And but he's still looking for new ideas. He's still studying the instrument, which is the beautiful thing about guitar or music in general, that you're never done. there's always more you can learn. There's always more to explore in that. And that was one of the experiences, you know, he showed me things, and we just kept handing the guitar back and forth, and just playing little ideas, you know, and had a lot of fun. And you know, at the end of the day, he agreed to do the duet with me. You know, that was the end effect. And you know, I was very lucky because on that was for my Blue Planet CD. It came out in '98. And I probably was the only unknown person on that record.
What a start, though. What a start.
If I could just very quickly, I am very, very honoured. My two wonderful children, Scott and Natasha, a few years back now, a Christmas present, they treated Nadine, my wife, and myself to go and see George Benson live at the Royal Albert Hall in London. And we just sat there, and at 74 years old, he walked down stage and he had that place rocking. And he went from breezing right the way through Give Me the Night and that. I mean, I was just sat there, just in awe.
You can't compete, because he can play one number one hit after the other for an hour and a half straight. You know, it's like one hit after the other. And it's just so many great songs, and you know, and his abilities are still there. He sings, he plays. He's just a master, you know, absolute master.
He is indeed. And you know, you've talked about having all those different influences in your life with respect to different genres of the R&B and the funk and the blues and all of that. You've also had an opportunity to work with a lot of people where your diversity in terms of your taste has made a difference too. I mean, over the years, you've worked with greats like George Clinton, the Temptations, and of course, we've mentioned George Benson. Amazingly, though, you co-wrote Keep Rolling on Benson's 1998 album, Standing Together, which was a project that was produced by Mr. Paul Brown. And then George returned the favor, as you had mentioned, on your debut project, 1998, with Blue Planet, and that was Yesterday's Dream. So obviously, you guys hit it off. I mean, you both played on each other's records.
Well, it was all in the same, it was all part of the same plan. We started off, we wrote the song for George.
Right.
There was me and my production partner at the time, and he's the guy who introduced me to George. We wrote the song for George, and George liked the song, but Tommy Lee Puma at the time turned it down.
Wow. Okay.
So we put Keep Rolling on my record. And George had agreed to do the duet with me after the episode we explained earlier. Right. And then when my Blue Planet record came out, we gave George a copy out of courtesy. Thank you, and here's to go. And Keep Rolling is right next to Yesterday's Dream. And he heard the song again. He said, he called us up and said, hey, listen, I'm going to talk to Tommy. I do want that song. And you got to record that too. And they said, well, we just released, well, we're not going to worry about that. So we sent the tracks over to Paul Brown, and all he did was really just, you know, take my guitar off and put George on it. And Alex Gallo bass on it. And other than that, the tracks are really the tracks that we did at my house. And Keep Rolling. And that was a very intense time for me. It was like where I got also, you know, life-wise, at that time we did shows called Nils and the West Coast All-Stars. It was a similar concept where the band had Ricky Lawson on drums. We had the horn section was Eric Marienthal, Everett Harp, and Rick Braun. We had Bobby Lyle on piano, Kevin Ricard on percussion. We had Carl Anderson and Phil Perry on vocals. It was like a monster undertaking. Howard Hewitt was guesting at one of the shows. But it also was, my production partner was, well, for lack of better word, he was crazy. I mean, we would do really naughty things. Example, mixing the record. I mean, we were in the days where we still worked on 2-inch tape. Right. We were mixing at big studios at Westlake Audio. A day at that studio is $1,000. The engineer was $1,000. We would go in Westlake to mix one song, but we had no money. So while Dave Rideau was mixing, we were on the phone the whole day, trying to raise $2,000 so at the end of the day we could take the tapes home. And we made it. I mean, we called everybody we knew, friends. We tried to sell percentages on the record, like little points, and we raised the $2,000. You know, getting the song on George's record helped me with all that too.
Sure.
Because it was very expensive to doing the record on your own. And then the concerts were similar. I mean, we booked the venue before I even knew it. The guy booked the venue and committed to pay $5,000 deposit at the end of the week. We had no money. I had no band. I had no charts. I had nothing. It was very, very, very stressful. And it almost fell apart several times, but somehow we got through it. You know, I don't know how we did it, but
It was your destiny. It was your destiny. That's why.
And for me, the difference was I felt before that I played little hole-in-the-wall clubs in LA, and all of a sudden I'm on stage with a band of that caliber. It's kind of like you're driving a moped all your life, and somebody has you like a 1100cc Kawasaki race bike, you know. That's how I felt. But you know, I learned really quick to keep up with it, you know. But
Yes.
the beginning was very, very scary and stressful. I'll tell you that.
Well,
But you know, it brought me up to a whole nother level.
absolutely. Well, what I would say, I mean, you've mentioned some amazing names. I mean, Paul Brown was a guest on our show here 3 weeks ago. It's still available to watch. When you watch it, and an amazing man. And I know Bobby Lyle, he's in line. He's possibly booked up in November before we interview him. So there's a lot of the
Tell him I
names.
said hi. I haven't seen him in quite a while, but he's a wonderful player. Yeah.
What we're going to do, we're going to momentarily just break from this wonderful interview. We're going to play a second track from your album, which just came out last year, called In the Group. I love this. This is Above the Clouds, and it is the most fabulous track. I just drive along. I go to work and I drive along, and I get at the I'm floating because it just puts you in such a wonderful parallel. It is wonderful. Ladies and gentlemen, just across the pond, we're interviewing the wonderful Nils from California. We're going to be straight back. Have a listen. Above the Clouds from the album called In the Group. We'll be back in a moment.
Welcome back to Jazz Across the Pond, Jazz Interviews Reimagined with the Jazz Cat and Mr. G. We've been listening to Above the Clouds, the fourth single released from our special guest current project, Caught in the Groove. Now, Nils, last week, Caught in the Groove picked up the #1 spot on Smooth Jazz Global's Top 100, and Above the Clouds, which we just listened to, scored 2 picks last week with the #26 spot on Billboard Smooth Jazz National Airplay Top 30 and the #41 spot on Radio Wave Smooth Jazz Top 100. And your other single we might as well bring up, I Like the Way You Do It, also picked up, it just broke, picked up the 97th spot on Radio Wave's Top 100. So quick congratulations to you,
Thank you.
on this quick success of your project.
Yeah.
So we've already said that your current project, Caught in the Groove, you have a track that I wanted to bring up, which is called Life is What You Make It.
Okay.
And the reason I bring that up, because obviously it's sage advice. You've been a perfect example of how if you don't take control of your own life, it may not happen. You have to make it happen.
Yeah.
And as a matter of fact, we have a mutual friend who took your advice to heart and reached out to you about her music. And of course, we're talking about Ms. Lisa Edio,
Oh, yes.
who's the Jazz Cat Mr. G interviewed just 4 weeks ago.
Mhm.
Now that track, Life is What You Make It, also harkens to a point that you made in the past when a producer taught you an important lesson in life. And I'm paraphrasing. He said, you have to create your own opportunities. You have to open your own doors. If you wait for someone else to do it, you might be waiting forever. Now,
Right.
who was it that gave you that advice, and exactly how did that come up in the conversation?
That was, I'm pretty sure it was Gerald McCauley, the gentleman I talked about earlier. He got
Mhm.
me, he's the white guy who produced my first album, Blue Planet.
Mhm.
It was a big learning and growing experience for me that time. You know, he took me from a guy who wanted to play fusion in little LA clubs to somebody who plays contemporary jazz with a huge band on a big concert stage.
Right.
And I learned so much by him, but at the same time, you know, it's like it's never a straight line. He was also maybe bipolar or crazy or whatever. You know, he was like, he had good days, and sometimes it was very, very, very stressful. Being with him, living with him, working with him. We were roommates at the same time too.
Right. Wow.
So, and at the very end, we had a big falling out. And I actually moved out, even though the house was in my lease, just to get away. But you know, if I look back, I wouldn't change a thing, because without him, there was all these lessons. And all the opportunities that I got through this experience is really, really a part of who I am. And I learned so many things that I was just oblivion to. I was maybe too young or not unexperienced. And these life lessons. Another one is that you have to have a certain crew around you that you can rely on, which I do have now with my friend Johnny Britt.
Great trumpeter.
Yeah, Clydeen Jackson, who co-wrote the song you referred to, and Oliver Brown, who was original member of Casey and the Sunshine Band.
That's right.
So
Oliver C. Brown, he's a friend of mine on Facebook.
Yeah.
Yep.
And those are people who I can call upon at any time. You know, it's like, Clydeen, I need you to sing some lines, or I need you to play some keyboard for me. Or Johnny, I mean, Johnny lived in my place last year. We did the record. He's down the street, so he's over at my house all the time. As a matter of fact, he's gonna come in about 45 minutes, and we're gonna play together, rehearse something. We're doing a show we're playing in Texas together this week.
Oh, amazing.
So,
Johnny Britt is definitely an unappreciated trumpet player. There's no question about that.
Yeah, and not only trumpet, but I mean, he sings, he plays piano, and we have that perfect symbiosis going, where we can, where I bring the elements that he's weaker on, and he brings the elements that I cannot do to my project, and together we get everything done. rather than waiting and then, it's like, oh, I cannot do this because I don't have the money to hire somebody. We just help each other out. It's just a phone call away and we get it done and lift each other up that way.
Brilliant. Well, your solo career really took off in 2005 when your hit song Pacific Coast Highway, brilliant album, stayed in the #1 in the radio charts for 11 weeks and was named by Billboard as the most heavily played track on the smooth jazz format. Over 15 years, it was spun unbelievably 30,000 times. I mean, that is just unprecedented. That is incredible. So 30,000 times. Several #1 hits followed and established him the driving force in the contemporary jazz today. What do you miss most from nowadays, from the music in the past? You've already alluded to things, how things have changed. What do you miss most about things?
Well, right now I'm struggling with the point with the death of the CD or the album format. It's become more and more apparent that people are getting away from CDs. I mean, it's like it's not even a sales point. It's always better to sell a whole CD than just one track. From a financial point of view. And it used to be when I was a kid and younger, you have a single that was basically advertising for the record. At the end, you wanted to sell the record.
Yeah.
But the other element that really gets lost when we don't have that anymore is an album is more like a complete work. At least if you do a record right. There were many records that I was disappointed because I bought it because it was a single, and the rest was just shite. But I always try to do records and I value albums where you have a depth of really good material that might not all be radio material, but give you a deeper insight into the artist. And there's so many times where I bought an album for that one track that I heard on the radio and I needed to have it, and I bought the record and I wore it out, and then after a while, these other tracks become my favorite tracks that I would have never explored or never found any other way other than by buying the whole record.
Right.
There's two things very quickly. I'm going to pick up on that. Sorry, Kevin, just 1 second. There's two things. One was that I totally agree with it. Brian Bromberg, a couple of weeks ago, we interviewed, and he said you wouldn't go into a shop and steal a £1,000 leather coat and walk out the shop without paying it. So why do people do it to musicians and steal and download their music from that? It's totally, absolutely wrong. But the other one I would say is I went to a city a couple of weeks ago with my wife, and I went into a store here in England called HMV, which is like the Tower of Power, but in the UK version. And when I went upstairs to the jazz section, surprise, I went up there. Half the shop was dedicated to vinyl albums. And it was like walking back in time. There was all these people flicking through the albums. I was like, this is amazing. Vinyl's back. So
yeah, I don't know. I mean, convenience usually wins. It is more, the download and streaming is so accessible and so easy. You can stream to your playlist and then be from home and get in your car and continue the playlist, where you picked off. You can take it with you while you're jogging on your phone with your earbuds or whatever. And it's just this, that's what it is. I mean, it is, I just don't know. I still like to do albums. I like to do and I'll tell a bigger story.
Yes.
And I do, whenever I can, encourage people to buy the whole album, because I think there's you can put stuff on a record. If you're only working for radio, then you can't, for one, be limiting yourself to like 3 minutes and 45 seconds max in the length of a song, right? You're limiting yourself in some of the other expressions that you might have. Just because you want to get play and want people to download, and we're losing something there. So I'm a little bit at a loss right now where this is ending. I experienced this lately in shows. We had CDs on that we could sell on shows. We say, okay, CDs now is the format that we take with us. Fans want an autographed CD when they come to a show. More and more experience that people say, well, I don't have a CD player. Yeah.
I know.
The cars don't have CD players anymore. So I see that format slowly disappearing, but I still want to find a way to preserve the art of doing an album. You know, right now I was elaborating for a week to find the right order of songs for a record that I just produced
Right.
for a rock and roll artist. Her name is Eileen Arden. And just because there's an art to the sequencing of what songs, because you want to take the listener on a journey, all these things that go
Exactly.
into that. If you just download
Exactly.
individual songs for people, it's a whole different experience, you know.
Well, I mean, again, sorry, Kevin, and that was epitomized on the Earth, Wind & Fire I Am album. If you listen to it, the way the tracks segued into each other, produced by David Foster, and the whole thing, you can't do it as a single. You have to listen to the entire album. The songs go from one after the lover's gone straight into, and it's just amazing. Kevin, question.
Yeah, it's a double-edged sword, Nils, exactly what you're saying. I mean, so many people want to put together a concept. You know, we grew up, we're kind of, I guess we're dinosaurs. We like that whole idea of a concept,
Right.
you know, from the beginning to end, it tells a full story. Now we're all about spins. How can I get as many spins as possible? And I think it's hurting the genre, it's hurting music in total, because so many artists get fixated on, this is the formula, I need to get as many spins as I can. And they're losing the creativity because they're sticking with a format and a formula and not trying to be creative, thinking in terms of how can I stitch all these songs together. So I think you're right. It's definitely a problem. It's definitely a problem. The other aspect of it is now you're getting spins to promote concerts. Used to be the other way around. Concerts were to promote LPs.
Right.
So now you've got the problem with our current state of affairs. And if you would share with our viewers how maintaining your independence, not only as a composer, musician, arranger, producer, and an engineer, and having a studio in your own home, but that flexibility gives you an opportunity to sort of ride out any storm of adversity like a pandemic, when so many other musicians have abandoned their musical careers altogether. So how have you been being self-sufficient, independent, having your own studio, controlling the shots? How has that helped you navigate through the pandemic?
Well, it's exactly that. I mean, I feel I'm one of the lucky ones that I have a full working, functioning studio at home. It's a production room. I don't record drums. Usually drums is the only thing that I record somewhere else because I don't have that many channels, but I have a couple channels that are really high. You know, we see behind me, high quality stuff, the same stuff you find at Ocean Way or some other high-end studio. So I can produce high quality. I just don't do that many outside projects as far as like recording full bands together and kind of concentrated on getting the highest quality. But I do it, do my own parts. I bring one or two musicians in and record them at a time. And having the studio at the house, I was still able to do work. I've done mixed stuff. I've been finishing up some record productions that I had going, and at least I could work, while other musicians, I mean, all the gigs were gone. It was a bummer. I had a hit record out. The first two singles of the current album both hit #1 on Billboard, and I couldn't go out and tour and support the album. that was a bummer, but at least I had work at home that having the studio, having the know-how too, because, you know, everybody can buy the gear.
Right.
And it's affordable these days that we're doing it, you know, in a computer and all that. But you still got to know what you're doing and how to put it together. So
well, time,
you
unfortunately,
just got to go from one to the other. There's no gigs, so I kind of try to get more mixing work, production work, and all that kind of stuff to keep me afloat.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Well, time,
and I was lucky that radio was so good to me last year, so so that brought in royalties from the radio. So that's how I survived.
Well, unfortunately, time is not on our side. It's not our friend tonight. We've still got a few minutes left. We've had a question come in, knowing that you're going to be with us tonight. We always promote it and that. And we've had Francis, who sent a message saying, can you, Nils, could I ask Nils, can you remember the first time you heard one of your songs played on the radio? Where were you and what were you doing?
Yeah, the first time I heard, I was driving just driving with my car to the bank, and I heard "Keep Rolling," and I was thinking I was listening to my CD in the car, and I listened. And all of a sudden, that's not my version. That's George Benson's version. I don't have that here in my car. And then I realized I'm listening to radio.
Wow.
Right.
And the other time, the second time, it was Pacific Coast Highway. When Pacific Coast Highway, we were driving to. I was playing a show for KYOT, is a station in Arizona, and the people just picked me up from the hotel to drive me to the venue. And while we were in the car, Pacific Coast Highway came on, and there was another. Oh man. Yeah.
Kevin,
It's still a blast. I mean, even last year I heard "Caught in the Groove" in the car while I was driving, and I got all excited about it. You know, it's always nice to hear yourself.
Kevin, have you got a last question?
I do. We know that everybody's trying to find work, and I was just curious, how have you been doing lately as far as composing? And do you have anything on the horizon you can share with us?
Well, I did a rock and roll record, different genre. As you say, my first influence was rock and roll, and I was able to go back there. I found this amazing singer. Her name is Eileen Arden. She has a voice, a mixture out of Adele, Melissa Etheridge, Pat Benatar, that kind of vein, really, like I would call it neoclassic rock.
Right.
And I got we recorded 15 songs. I just sent it off to mastering today, as a matter of fact.
Awesome.
So that took a lot of my time last year. And I always have a couple other projects, like I take on clients, independent contemporary jazz artists that I either help write songs for, or if they have good songs, then I just produce and put the recording together, mix it for them. But now I'm at a point where actually I have a couple shows this week, and when I come off, I have a month off, and I'm going to be back. I got to write the next record.
There you go.
It comes in waves with me. I got to write a record. I also got to write a record for Guitar G-Force, at least some songs. Guitar G-Force is basically an all-star guitar player group, kind of guitars and saxes, just with guitars. It's Tim Bowman, Steve Oliver, myself. And then I'm doing this project with Johnny Britt. We call it Heart and Soul. And Johnny mentioned he wants to write a couple songs for that specifically. And we might just do a couple songs rather than doing a whole record for that. But for my own, so this summer I'm just going to get back into a writing mode. And when I get into the groove, I keep writing. I try to write something every day and not judge it. Whatever comes out, comes out.
Yeah.
And I've been in a finishing, mixing, production, filing, and making everything look fine mode for the last so many months. So I got to kind of flip over and get my ideas flowing and come up with new stuff.
Right.
We're ready for it.
Literally, time is literally just going to, the curtain's beginning to come down. And Nils, where can people buy your music?
They can always go to nilsmusic.com, nilsmusic.com on my website. Everything's available for download, or they can order autographed CDs. They can also follow me on Facebook at Nils Guitar, or my YouTube channel, Nils Guitar. And other stores, I mean, these days, Amazon, iTunes, they should be available in all these kind of places still, all the services.
Well, I mean, I should endorse that. I mean, I'm going to see if I can get a copy of yours signed by yourself. That is wonderful. Ladies and gentlemen, we've been listening to the fabulous Nils from California. The album is called Caught in the Groove. We're going to finish off with a wonderful track that's called, we're going to play Out of Sight. And Nils, very quickly, we've got 1 minute left. One last quick thing from yourself. Anything at all?
No, thank you so much for having me on your show. I want to give a shout out to all my fans in the UK, and just hope that I can come back and perform, in your country rather sooner than later. And yeah, please keep following me. Find me on Spotify, on Facebook, YouTube, and be happy to answer any question if somebody wants to send me an email or send me a note. And we live for having our fans, and they make it possible for us to do what we do, and I appreciate that.
Say goodnight, Kevin.
Good night, Kevin.
And it's good night from him. Ladies and gentlemen, Jazz Across the Pond, thank you so much for joining. Another great interview again next week from everybody here, from California, from Richmond, Virginia, from England. We're all here. Nils, thank you so much for your time, sir.
Thank you.